I didn't know he was married.
He deceived me.
So my husband can do this. I will deal with him badly.
The day I discovered my husband was living a second life, I did not scream. I did not faint. I just stood there in my small sitting room in Ibadan, holding a cup of tea that suddenly tasted like betrayal. My name is Bisola, and for 9 years, I believed I had a good marriage. Not perfect, but solid. The kind people point at during family meetings and say, that one is working. I was wrong. Because while I was here raising my children and managing a home, Kunle, my husband, had another family. Not in another state, not even in another city, just 4 streets away. And the worst part, I almost greeted them one day without knowing who they were. For 9 years, I lived as a devoted wife. The kind that wakes before dawn, ties her wrapper tight, and starts the day before the sun even remembers its duty. I cooked, cleaned, packed lunch boxes, and still found time to braid my daughter's hair neatly for school. My children, Sade and Kitan, were my joy, my entire world, the reason I ignored my own exhaustion most days. People used to say, Bisola, you are trying, and I would smile like a woman who believed her effort was building something strong. Kunle too played his part well. He provided, he laughed, he even prayed loudly on Sundays like a man who feared God. If there was an award for acting, that man deserved a standing ovation. Because not once in those 9 years did I suspect that my peaceful home was just one half of a carefully arranged lie. It started on a Thursday, one of those hot Ibadan afternoons when even the walls seemed tired. Kunle had just returned from what he called his usual Ibadan branch meeting, and I remember thinking nothing of it as I collected his bag. But then it hit me. A scent. Soft, sweet, and unmistakably feminine. Not my perfume, not anything I owned. I froze for a second, my nose twitching like a detective in a Nollywood film. I laughed it off at first, even teased him. Who hugged you like this? He smiled too quickly, too smoothly, and said it must have been someone at the office. I nodded, but something inside me shifted. Small, but sharp. Because that was not the first time I had noticed that scent on him, and this time it refused to leave my mind. For years, I had accepted his weekly travels like they were part of our marriage vows. Every Thursday, he would pack a small bag, kiss my forehead, and say, Ibadan walk is calling. I never questioned it. Why would I? I trusted him. I even defended him when people complained about men who traveled too often. I would say, my husband is not like that. Imagine, me, defending a man who had already built another life close enough to hear my generator at night. I followed the routine blindly. I waved him off. I welcomed him back. I never checked, never doubted, never asked questions. Because in my mind, we were fine. We were stable. We were safe. But now, that scent had planted something dangerous in my heart. And for the first time in 9 years, I began to wonder, where exactly was Kunle going every Thursday? He acted normal. That was the most annoying part. Kunle dropped his bag, stretched like a tired hero, and even asked what I cooked, as if nothing had followed him home. But me, I was no longer okay. That scent sat in my chest like unpaid rent. I noticed it again when I picked up his shirt. Same soft feminine smell. Not once, not twice, multiple times. And suddenly, all the small things I ignored began to line up like gossiping aunties at a wedding. My heart was beating fast, but my face stayed calm. Because deep down, I knew something was wrong. And this time, I could not deceive myself. I told myself, Bisola, You are not a fool. I dropped the excuses. I dropped the blind trust. If something was hiding in my house, I would drag it into the light. Quietly, carefully, no shouting, no drama, just truth. I began to plan like a woman preparing for war, without noise, because whatever Kule was doing, I would find out, even if it meant following him like those sharp-eyed aunties who always know everybody's business. And as I stood there that night, watching him scroll through his phone with that suspicious little smile, I made a decision that would change everything. From that day, my eyes opened wide. I began to watch Kule like a hawk watching a careless chicken. Small things started shouting loudly. His phone, once free like a public tap, suddenly had a new password. Even when he was bathing, that phone followed him like a loyal dog. And the bathing itself, the man would enter the house and rush straight to the bathroom, as if water could wash away secrets. Not even a proper greeting again. Just, I am tired, and boom, bathroom door closed. I would stand there, arms folded, smiling like a calm wife. But inside, my mind was calculating like a market woman balancing accounts. Because this was no longer ordinary behavior. Something was hiding. Something close. Something bold. And I was getting closer to it. Then, his so-called work trips began to change. What used to be one night turned into two. 2 became 3. Sometimes he would say network was bad, yet his WhatsApp would show online at strange hours. I started checking small details. The dust on his shoes was not from long travel. Even his clothes did not smell like a man who had been on the road. Everything pointed to one thing. He was not going far. In fact, the more I thought about it, the more it felt like Kule was hiding in plain sight. Somewhere close, somewhere I could almost touch. And that realization alone made my chest tighten. Because if I was right, then his secret was not just near, it was dangerously close. The confirmation did not come from Kule. It came from Mama Bisi, our neighbor, the woman who knows everything before it even happens. That afternoon, she leaned over the fence, finding herself like a town crier, and said casually, Bisola, there is one woman in Alaja compound. Very fine girl. A man visits her often. That man looks exactly like your husband. She even laughed after saying it, as if it was just gist for entertainment. I laughed too. What else could I do? But inside me, something dropped. Heavy. Final. Because Mama Bisi was not the type to imagine things. And the way she said it, with confidence and enjoyment, meant she had seen it well. Very well. My heart began to race. But I kept my face steady. Because at that moment, one thought entered my mind and refused to leave. What if this was no longer suspicion, but the truth waiting for me to find it? I knew that compound. Everybody in our area knew Alaja compound. It was barely a 15-minute walk from my house. 15 minutes. Do you understand? Not another town, not another life far away. Just a short walk. The kind of distance you can cover while arguing on the phone. My legs suddenly felt weak, but my mind became sharp. All the signs, all the strange behavior, all the lies, they were pointing there, right there. I even remembered passing that street many times, greeting people, buying fruits, living my normal life, while my husband was possibly living another life just around the corner. I stood up slowly that evening, tied my wrapper firmly, and picked my bag. Because if the truth was hiding in that compound, then I was about to walk straight into it. I walked into Alaja compound like someone who came to visit a friend, but my heart was beating like a talking drum at a festival. Children were playing, women were chatting, life was moving normally, as if nobody knew the secret I came to uncover. Then I saw her, a beautiful woman, calm, glowing, holding a baby like she had known peace all her life. She laughed softly, adjusting the child on her shoulder, and something about the scene felt complete. Too complete. My eyes moved around quickly. Men's slippers by the door. A shirt I recognized hanging on a line. My chest tightened. This was not a random visit. This was a home, a real home. And as I stood there, pretending to check my phone, one terrifying thought settled in my mind. This woman was not alone in this life, and I already knew the man she was sharing it with. I walked back home slowly, but the woman who entered that house was no longer the same one who left. The tears did not come. The shouting did not come. Something else took over. Cold, quiet, sharp. I dropped my bag, sat down and stared at the wall like a woman calculating her next move in a chess game. Kunle thought he was smart. Fine, let him be smart. I would be wiser. No emotional outburst, no confrontation. Not yet. I would peel his lies layer by layer until there was nothing left to hide. Because what I saw in that compound was not a mistake. It was a full life, a planned life. And if he could build that behind my back, then I would take my time and destroy it in front of his eyes. Starting with one simple question that suddenly came to my mind. When exactly did this second life begin? I sat there and began to count backwards like a woman solving a dangerous puzzle. The baby I saw could not be more than a few months old. Fresh, new. Then it hit me. My chest tightened. About a year ago, Kunle told me he had a long project out of town. He was gone often, busy, always tired. I even pitied him. I cooked special meals. I prayed for his success. Meanwhile, that was when this child was created. I pressed my hand against my head and laughed quietly, the kind of laugh that has no joy inside it. The timeline was too perfect, too clean. This was not a mistake. This was a well-planned double life. And as the realization settled fully, one truth became clear to me. My husband did not just cheat. He built an entire family while I was clapping for his hard work. For one full week, I became a different person. Quiet, observant, intentional. I gathered information the way market women gather change carefully without drawing attention. I visited that place more than once, each time blending in like I belonged. I listened. I watched. I asked small, harmless questions. And slowly, the story opened itself. The woman's name was Amaka. She had been living there 11 months. 11. My chest burned, but my face remained calm. People spoke freely, not knowing who I was. They said her man was responsible. He paid rent on time, took care of everything. I nodded like a stranger hearing sweet gossip, but inside me, something was building. Because every word they said was adding weight to one undeniable truth. Kunle was not just visiting that place. He was fully invested in it. The more I listened, the clearer it became. Kunle was not a visitor there. He was a resident in disguise. They said he spent nights there often, sometimes 2 nights, sometimes more. He carried himself like the owner of the house, not a guest. I even heard one woman say, "That man loves his wife and child well." I almost laughed. Wife, which one? Child, which ones? My hands tightened inside my wrapper, but I kept walking like nothing was wrong. Because at that moment, I understood the full picture. This man had built a complete second life and was moving between both homes like a politician during campaigns. And the scariest part, he had been doing it so smoothly that nobody suspected anything. Nobody except me. And now that I knew, there was no going back, only forward. And forward meant one thing. I needed proof, strong enough to break him completely. My father used to say, when a snake enters your house, you do not announce it to the neighborhood. You lock the doors and deal with it properly. That advice came back to me like a warning. I refused to create a scene. No shouting in the street, no dragging of shirts. That would only make me look foolish while he denied everything. No. I needed something solid, something he could not twist with his smooth tongue. So, I became patient, calm, strategic. I smiled at him. I served his food. I even asked about his Ibadan trips with soft concern, and he answered with confidence, not knowing I was already 10 steps ahead. Because while he was busy acting like a faithful husband, I was quietly building the evidence that would end his performance, starting with one simple move I knew he would never expect. The next morning, after he left the house with his usual "I am traveling" speech, I picked up my phone and called his office. My voice was calm, polite, like a supportive wife checking on her hard-working husband. "Good morning. I just wanted to confirm if Kunle arrived safely for the Ibadan meeting." There was a short pause. Then the receptionist laughed lightly and said, "Ibadan Ke? He's in town today. He even stepped out for a short break." My hand went cold. My heart did not race this time. It settled, hard, heavy, final. That was it. No more doubt, no more guessing. Kunle was not traveling anywhere. He was right here, living his second life boldly. I ended the call, sat down slowly, and stared ahead. Because now that I had confirmed his biggest lie, there was only one place left to go and one person I needed to face. I did not rush. I dressed well, simple but firm, like a woman going to settle serious business. When I got to that compound, my steps were steady. No fear, no hesitation. I knocked on the door. She opened it. Amaka. Up close, she looked even more peaceful, like someone who had no idea a storm was standing in front of her. For a few seconds, we just stared at each other. Something passed between us. Recognition, not of faces, but of truth. Her smile faded slowly. My chest tightened, but I spoke calmly. "We need to talk." She stepped aside without a word, and as I entered that house, the same house my husband had been building behind my back, I felt it clearly. This conversation was not going to end quietly. She sat down slowly, still studying my face like she was trying to solve a riddle. I did not waste time. I told her my name. I told her how long I had been married to Kunle. The air in that room changed instantly. Her eyes widened, then hardened. "That is not possible," she said, her voice shaking. "He told me his wife is dead." Dead. I almost smiled, not out of joy, but shock. Then she stood up, rushed inside, and came back with a paper, a death certificate. My name was on it, my full name, declared dead like I had been buried and forgotten. My fingers trembled as I held it. That was when it hit me fully. This man did not just lie. He erased me completely to build another life. And suddenly, the situation became far more dangerous than I imagined. I placed the paper down slowly and looked her straight in the eye. I am very much alive, I said, my voice calm but heavy. And you are not his wife. The words hung in the air like thunder waiting to strike. She staggered back, shaking her head, tears forming fast. No, he told me everything. He said he buried you. He said he was alone. Her voice broke. I watched her carefully, and in that moment, I saw it clearly. This woman was not my enemy. She was me, just in another house, another version of the same deception. My anger shifted, not disappearing, but redirecting, because the real problem was not sitting in front of me. It was the man who created this twisted story. And as we both stood there, two women tied together by one man's lies, a dangerous understanding began to form between us. The crying stopped slowly, not because the pain ended, but because something stronger replaced it. Sense. Clarity. I pulled a chair and sat down, then looked at her. Amaka, the woman I thought I would hate. If we fight each other, he wins, I said quietly. She wiped her tears, breathing hard, then nodded. The room felt different now. Not like a battlefield, but like a meeting ground. We began to talk, calmly, carefully, connecting every lie he told both of us. It was worse than we imagined. Calculated, planned, intentional. I leaned forward and said, we will not shout, we will not beg, we will not drag him in the street. She looked at me, eyes sharp now. So what do we do? I paused for a second, then answered with quiet certainty. We will take him down properly and make sure he never recovers from it. The next day, I sat in a quiet office across from a man who looked like he had seen every kind of human foolishness and was no longer surprised by anything. Barrister Adewale. I placed everything on his table. My marriage certificate, the fake death certificate, dates, names, details. Amaka sat beside me, silent but strong. The barrister adjusted his glasses, read through the document slowly, then looked up at us. This is bigamy, he said plainly, and not a careless one. This is calculated fraud. My chest rose slowly as I listened. For the first time since all this began, I felt something close to control. He leaned back and continued, if we handle this properly, he will not only answer legally, he will lose more than he ever imagined. I exchanged a quick glance with Amaka. No words, just understanding. Because at that moment, it became clear. This was no longer just about heartbreak. It was about justice, and we were ready to take it. We did not waste time. Papers began to gather like storm clouds. My marriage certificate, Amaka's documents, bank alerts, rent payments, transfers. Every small detail Kunle thought nobody was watching. I opened my old files, the ones I kept neatly like a careful housewife, and suddenly they became weapons. Receipts, dates, even messages he sent me while he was lying to her. Amaka added her own records too, evidence from both sides of his double life. Barrister Adewale nodded slowly as we arranged everything before him. Good, he said. Very good. This is how you build a case that cannot be shaken. I felt a strange satisfaction rising inside me. Not joy, not yet, but something close. Because piece by piece, lie by lie, we were rebuilding the truth he tried so hard to bury, and we were getting dangerously close to the moment he would have nowhere left to hide. The barrister leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. With this, we can go further than you think. He began to list them one by one. The hidden land he bought, the shop space he never mentioned, accounts that did not pass through our home. My eyes widened slightly. Amaka gasped under her breath. Kunle had not just been living two lives, he had been building two empires quietly. The court can order division of these assets, the barrister continued. Everything tied to this deception can be claimed. I sat back slowly, letting it sink in. All those years, I thought we were managing. He was multiplying wealth somewhere else. My fingers tightened, but this time not from pain, from realization. Because now, it was no longer just about catching him. It was about taking back everything he hid and making sure his carefully built secret life becomes the very thing that destroys him. From that day, our lives became documents and strategy. Every detail mattered. Dates were checked and rechecked. Names were written clearly. No mistake, no gaps. I sat at my dining table late into the night, papers spread like exam scripts, while Shadi and Kitan slept peacefully, unaware their mother was rebuilding her life with ink and evidence. Amaka did the same from her side. We called each other often, not as rivals, but as partners in something serious. Barrister Adewale guided every step, correcting, tightening, strengthening our case. It was no longer emotional. It was precise, clean, deadly, because we understood one thing clearly now. If we were going to face Kunle, we would not go with tears. We would go with facts strong enough to break him completely, and we were almost ready. Then we moved to the digital trail. Messages, transfers, call logs, the kind of evidence people forget can speak loudly in silence. I opened all chats and felt my chest tighten as I read his sweet words to me, sent at the same time he was promising forever to Amaka. Dates matched perfectly, lies stacked neatly. Amaka forwarded her own messages too. The same man, the same style, just different victims. Bank alerts showed steady payments to her account while he told me money was tight. I almost laughed at the boldness. Barrister Adewale reviewed everything carefully and nodded. "This is strong," he said. "Very strong." I leaned back, exhaling slowly, because now it was no longer suspicion or emotion. It was proof, solid, clear, undeniable. And somewhere out there, Kunle was still moving freely, smiling, lying, completely unaware that every step he took was already being recorded and that his downfall was no longer a possibility. It was a countdown. While we were building our case quietly, Kunle was busy performing like the perfect man. He still called me with that soft voice, asking about the children, telling me to rest, even praying for me on the phone as if heaven was not watching him closely. I responded normally. I even laughed sometimes, playing my role so well that he never suspected anything. Amaka did the same. She welcomed him, cooked for him, listened to his stories, and he moved between both houses with confidence, like a man in full control. It almost felt unreal. 2 women, 1 man, and only the man was in the dark. Every smile he gave us was feeding the case against him. Every lie he told was adding another nail. And as I watched him that night, sitting comfortably in my living room, I shook my head slightly inside, because if he had any idea what was coming, he would not be this relaxed. He would be running. That was when I remembered something important. My habit, the one people used to laugh at. "Bisola, why do you keep every receipt like a shop owner?" they would say. I smiled then, but now that habit became gold. I brought out old envelopes, small boxes, even kitchen drawers, receipts from years back, payments, transfers, dates he claimed to be somewhere else. Everything started connecting like a perfect puzzle. Fuel receipts from locations near Alaja, store payments close to that compound, even supermarket slips that were not in our area. I spread them out on the table, my eyes scanning quickly. My heart was calm, focused, because what looked like ordinary paper before had now become evidence of movement, proof of lies, proof of presence, proof that Kunle had been living his second life right under my nose. And as I arranged the final pieces together, one thing became certain. The plan was almost complete, and the next step would be the one he could never escape from. The plan came together quietly, like something dangerous wrapped in calm. No noise, no mistakes. Barrister Adewale explained everything step by step, his voice steady, his eyes sharp. We chose the timing carefully. Not in my house, not in public. At Amaka's place, where he felt safe, where he relaxed the most. That would be the perfect moment. The police would be involved. Legal, clean, final. I nodded as he spoke, my hands resting calmly on my lap. Amaka sat beside me, equally focused. No fear, just readiness. Because we were no longer reacting to pain, we were executing a decision. And once it started, there would be no turning back. I stood up slowly after the meeting, adjusting my bag, my mind clear. Because the next time Kunle walked into that house thinking he was in control would be the exact moment everything would collapse around him. The day arrived quietly. No thunder, no warning. Kunle walked into Amaka's house that evening like a king returning to his palace, relaxed, smiling, carrying snacks for the child. He had no idea that every step he took was leading him into a trap already set. Amaka welcomed him as usual, her face calm, her voice soft. The baby laughed, innocent, unaware of the storm sitting in that room. Then, just as Kunle settled down, there was a knock on the door. Firm, official, not the knock of a neighbor, not the knock of a friend. Amaka stood up slowly and opened it. 2 police officers stepped in. Silence fell instantly. Kunle froze. His smile disappeared. His eyes moved from the officers to Amaka, then toward the door, and in that moment he realized something was terribly wrong. Everything scattered at once. Mr. Kunle Adebayo, one officer asked, his voice sharp and official. Kunle tried to stand, but his legs did not cooperate immediately. There must be a mistake, he said quickly, forcing a weak smile, the same smile that had deceived 2 homes. The officer did not smile back. He stepped forward and held his arm firmly. You are under arrest for bigamy and fraud. The words landed heavy. Final. Kunle's eyes widened as he turned to Amaka, searching for support, for confusion, for anything. But she stood still, her face calm, her silence loud. The baby began to cry. The room felt smaller, tighter. Kunle opened his mouth again, but no clever words came out this time. Because for the first time in years, his lies had caught up with him, and there was no story left to tell. I did not go there. I did not need to. By the time my phone rang, I already knew. It was Amaka. Her voice was steady. It is done, she said. I closed my eyes briefly, exhaling slowly. She told me how he stood there, confused, sweating, trying to explain himself to the officers, like a man whose script had suddenly disappeared. She said he kept asking questions, his voice rising, his confidence breaking piece by piece. I could almost see it in my mind. The same man who moved between 2 homes like a master planner, now standing exposed, small, ordinary. When the call ended, I sat quietly in my living room, looking around at the life I had protected for years. No tears, no shouting, just silence, because the truth had finally done what emotions could not. It had brought him down. But something told me this was only the beginning. The case moved fast, faster than I expected. Once the documents were presented, Kunle had no place to hide. The fake death certificate alone shook the courtroom. Even the judge paused, looking at him with disbelief. His lawyer tried to speak, to twist something, anything, but the evidence was too clear, too complete. Dates matched, records aligned. 2 homes, 2 women, 1 calculated lie. I sat there quietly, hands folded, watching everything unfold like a film I had already seen. Amaka sat beside me, calm but firm. Kunle avoided our eyes. The man who once spoke with confidence now looked like someone searching for mercy in a place where truth had already taken over. And as the proceedings continued, one thing became painfully obvious. This was not a case he could escape. It was a judgment waiting to happen. The judgment came like a clean cut. No confusion, no delay. Kunle was found guilty. The court did not shout, it did not drag. It simply stated the truth and placed the consequence beside it. A suspended prison sentence, the judge said, but only if he complied fully with financial restitution. I watched his face carefully. That was when it finally broke. Not when he was arrested, not when the evidence was shown, but right there, when he realized everything he built in secret would now be taken from him legally. His shoulders dropped. His eyes lost that familiar confidence. For the first time, Kunle looked like a man who understood loss. Real loss. And as the judge continued speaking, outlining what must be paid, what must be released, what must be surrendered, I felt something settle inside me. Because this was not revenge, this was balance being restored. And it was only going to get heavier for him from here. The final orders came with weight. The court did not hesitate. Every hidden asset was brought into the light. The land, the shop space, the accounts, all of it, divided properly between me and Amaka, with clear instructions that it must provide for all the children involved, Sade, Kiton, and the little boy, David. I glanced at Amaka briefly. No words, just a quiet understanding. This was not how we planned our lives, but this was where we stood now. Kunle remained silent, his head slightly bowed, as everything he once controlled was now reassigned in front of him, legally, publicly, completely. And as the gavel finally came down, one truth stood clear in that courtroom. The life he tried to hide was now the very thing that stripped him of everything. And outside those walls, a new reality was waiting for all of us. After the court, life did not pause for me. It moved. It had to. I returned home and focused on what truly mattered. My Sade and Kitan, my children, their routine, their peace. I adjusted quietly, making sure their world did not shake more than it already had. School runs continued. Meals were served. Laughter slowly returned in small pieces. Children are stronger than we think. They asked questions, yes, but I answered with care, protecting their hearts while standing in my truth. At night, when the house became quiet, I would sit alone for a moment, letting everything settle properly. Not with pain, not with anger, but with understanding. Because what broke could not be fixed, but what remained could still be built, and I was determined to build it well, even as another part of this story was unfolding somewhere else, where Amaka was also trying to stand strong in a life she never planned for. Amaka's life changed too, not slowly, immediately. The court support gave her stability, but peace, that one had to be rebuilt from scratch. She focused on her son David, holding him a little tighter these days, as if trying to protect him from a story he did not ask to be born into. We spoke often, not as strangers, not as rivals, but as two women who had seen the same storm from different windows. She started making plans, small steps, new routines, a future that did not depend on lies. And somehow, in the middle of everything, strength began to grow quietly in her too, because even though Kunle had tried to define both our lives, we were now the ones choosing what came next. And far away from our control, The man at the center of it all was about to face a reality he never prepared for. When Kunle was finally released, he did not come out as the same man. The confidence was gone. The pride was gone. What remained was someone trying to return to a life that no longer existed. One evening, he showed up in front of my house. Not boldly, not like before. He stood there, hesitant, looking at the gate like a stranger, hoping to be recognized. But that house was no longer his, not legally, not emotionally, not in any way that mattered. The walls he once walked freely within had already rejected him. And as he stood there, unsure of what to do next, one thing became clear. The man who once controlled 2 homes now had nowhere to belong, and the silence around him was louder than any insult I could have given him. They told me later how he stood there for a long time, quiet, lost, like someone waiting for a door that would never open again. Neighbors passed by, some pretending not to see him, others whispering behind their hands. The same street that once respected him now looked at him like a lesson, a warning. He shifted his weight from one leg to another, checking his phone, looking around, hoping for something, anything. But nothing came. No welcome, no sympathy, just silence. The kind that forces a man to face himself. And as the evening grew darker, Kunle remained there, a shadow of the life he once lived, standing in front of a house that no longer knew him, while somewhere else, I was nowhere near that scene, and for a very good reason. I was not there to see him. I was not behind the curtain. I was not watching from a distance. I was out, living my life, breathing freely, in a way I had not in years. That chapter had closed, and I refused to reopen it just to look at a man who chose to lose everything. I sat that evening in a quiet place, calm, present, untouched by the drama I had left behind. Because moving on is not noise, it is not revenge, it is silence. It is choosing yourself without announcement. And while Kunle stood outside a life he destroyed, I was already walking inside a new one I had built. But even as I moved forward, one truth stayed with me, a lesson that shaped everything that came after. And it was a lesson I would never ignore again.
The truth is simple. Pain will confuse you, but truth will free you. For years, I chose peace that was only on the surface, smiling, enduring, pretending everything was fine. But real peace is not quiet suffering, it is honesty. Even when it shakes your life, even when it breaks things apart. I learned the hard way that choosing yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. Because if you keep performing peace for others, you may wake up one day and realize you have lost yourself completely. And I refused to let that happen again. Not for love, not for marriage, not for anything. Because once you see the truth clearly, you can never go back to pretending. And that clarity changes everything, including how you see the people who stood beside you in that storm, especially one person I never expected to stand with me. Amaka was never my enemy. That truth became clear the moment we stopped seeing each other through his lies. She was a victim, just like me. Different house, same deception. And the moment we chose to stand together instead of apart, everything changed. What he used to control us became the very thing that exposed him. 2 voices became 1. 2 stories became evidence. 2 women became a force he could not manipulate. That alliance was not planned, but it was powerful. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is refuse to fight the wrong person. And in doing that, we took back control of our lives. But that kind of strength does not come easily. It comes from a decision, a hard one. The decision to stop being passive in your own story and start demanding the truth you deserve. It takes strength to stop watching your life like a film and step into it like the main character. I had to make that choice, to stop excusing, to stop ignoring, to stop hoping things would fix themselves, because they do not when lies are involved. I chose to act, to ask questions, to seek truth even when it was uncomfortable, and that decision changed everything. It shifted me from a victim of circumstance to a woman in control of her outcome. Not because the situation was easy, but because I refused to stay silent inside it. And once you make that shift, something powerful happens. You begin to see that even after betrayal, even after everything falls apart, there is still a way forward, a way to rebuild, a way to rise again. We both found a way forward. Not the life we planned, but a life we chose with clear eyes. I rebuilt my home with strength and peace. Amaka did the same, step by step, creating something honest for herself and her son. The past did not disappear, but it no longer controlled us. We moved with purpose, with clarity, with dignity, and in time, laughter returned fully, not forced, not hidden, real. Because betrayal may shake your foundation, but it does not have to end your story. If anything, it can mark the beginning of a stronger one. And as I stood one evening watching my children play freely, I realized something powerful. We did not just survive that storm, we rose above it. And there was one final truth I needed to share, something every woman, every person needed to hear. Strength is not loud. It is not in shouting or fighting in the streets. It is in choosing truth when lies feel easier. It is in taking action when silence feels safer. What saved me was not anger. It was clarity. It was the decision to use the law, to use facts, to stand firm without losing myself. Justice is not just a word. It is something you can pursue when you refuse to accept deception as your reality. And when truth finally stands, it doesn't just expose the lie, it frees you completely. And that freedom is something nobody can take away from you. But before this story ends, there's something I need you to remember. Something important, something that might change your own life. If you're listening to me right now, hear this clearly. Do not ignore your instincts. Do not silence your questions just to keep peace that is not real. You deserve honesty. You deserve respect. And when something feels wrong, it's your right to seek the truth, not hide from it. Speak to someone. Get support. Protect yourself. Because staying in darkness will never protect you. It will only protect the lie. I stood where you may be standing, confused, hurt, unsure. But I chose to act, and that choice changed everything. So choose yourself. Choose truth. Choose a life that is real, not one you're forced to pretend in. Because at the end of the day, your peace should not be an act, it should be your reality.